Firestone, and they're telling us less than 10% wear. So they are really just doing a happy dance down here in the Firestone camp, because now they know they got a tire that can run up front and last.
We talked about rain over and over and over again, but we've also had other conditions here this weekend. In fact, when we came out on Friday, the Firestone tire engineers measured the track temperature at 131 degrees, by far the hottest we've seen all year long. We'll be back. Alex Zanardi, our new leader at the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 is being brought to you by Budweiser, the classic American lager. By Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. And by American Honda, maker of fine quality automobiles, motorcycles, and power equipment. Back live at Portland International Raceway, and look at the crowd that has turned out despite 48 hours of on and off monsoons. In fact, we even had hail here yesterday at PIR, about the size of BB's. Here's a look at our pit stop analysis, and the important two are right up there on top, Zanardi and Gugelmin.
Well, that's quite a change. It's great when you've got a pit crew that can get you out in front of somebody else. That's just an added advantage. He doesn't have to now make a pass, and also he gets to make a restart with nobody in front of him, so he'll have that clear, no clear air in front of him, no moisture, no spray.
And that's probably the most important advantage. Clear track and clear air in front of Alex Zanardi. 2.3 seconds the Ganassi team beat the PacWest team by in that pit stop contest.
Now, one of the things I'd like to comment is, you see in the background there, the sky is getting a little brighter out there. And again, we could have some changing conditions again. Now, the track will stay damp for a long time. It's cool up here, a lot of moisture on there. But as it starts to dry out on line, who knows what these tires will do at that stage.
Richie Hearn comes back on the track, sponsored by Ralph's Food for Less. They've been doing a good job, despite the fact they're working with a Lola chassis that has proven so troublesome this year. There you see on the back wing, it says, Katie, get well soon. It's the wife of one of their crew members who's going through a medical emergency back in Indianapolis. They're watching on television, and their team is thinking about them. We're still under a full course caution here at Portland. Let's take a moment to look ahead to the next round of the PPG Kart World Series. It'll be coming your way from Cleveland, Ohio, Burke Lakefront Airport. Home, of course, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Last year, nobody rocked harder than Gilles de Ferran, who passed Alex Zanardi to come through and take a victory for retiring car owner Jim Hall. Be sure to be with us for the Cleveland Grand Prix, Sunday, July 13th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC Sports. One lap to green. You see the cars spread out across this drag strip of a front straightaway, because that's what it is. It's a drag strip. Portland International Raceway, a multi-use facility built on property that once housed a small town called Vanport. It was the residential community for people working for Kaiser Industries building Liberty ships during World War II. It was destroyed during a flood. Very little loss of life, fortunately, due to some advance warning. They are used to working with large volumes of water here in Portland. We've certainly had that this weekend. Gary Gerald now has a report on a couple of the racers out there.
Paul Tracy made his initial stop of this race on the first yellow. That's why we didn't see him in the last flurry. As for Dario Franchitti, remember, he was running in the top 5 initially. They had a problem when he came in, some confusion over whether or not they would change tires. While they were changing the tires, they had a wheel gun malfunction on the right front. It cost them an extreme amount of time. I believe he slipped all the way down to around 17th position as a result, Bob.
There you see Paul Tracy, who had such a run earlier this year, picking up 3 straight victories. Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Rio de Janeiro, St. Louis at the new Gateway International Raceway. Dramatic finishes, each and every one of them. Here's our field summary. Alex Zanardi up front after that exchange of the lead on the pit stop. Mo Gugelmin now in second. Jimmy Vasser in third, moving up to third behind his teammate and the Brazilian driver. Scott Pruitt now in fourth. Paul Tracy fifth. Michael Andretti, Mark Blundell. There you see the rest of the field. Max Pappas apparently out of the race. Christian Danner definitely out. His car going off in the festival chicane was the reason that brought out this yellow flag. Juan Fangio 5 laps down. This is a big weekend for Dan Gurney, who owns the cars being driven by P.J. Jones and Juan Fangio II. 30 years ago this weekend, Dan won the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium, the last American to win a Formula One race in a car of his own construction, one of the early Eagle Westlakes. And that, of course, came just 1 week after he and A.J. Foyt teamed up to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Oh, we have a spin.
Spin down there.
I think that was Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt, I believe, spun, trying to get a restart.
Lots of room out there to take evasive action. And the green has come out, so we are back racing once again, and that's the worst news of all for the spinner.
That will only be a local yellow there. Look at him all funneled down in there. Boy, up over the curb, really forcing everybody inside. Al Unser Jr. back at the left of your screen, that bright red and white. Look, he drove a car right off. Oh, they couldn't. They got hooked up. They drove a car right in there. That is Dario Franchitti.
Franchitti and Unser Jr. off in the festival curves. And the yellows are back out. And that was a crash of some pretty tremendous force, given the fact that you're moving fairly slowly there in the festival curves.
Well, they went around there. It almost like they got hooked together. They came through the corner side by side.
There they are at the middle of the screen.
Dario Franchitti's right out there on the outside. That's his car right there. Al Unser Jr. They look hooked. See, they're hooked and they're trying to accelerate. Their wheels are hooked. They've got nowhere to go. Now they separate them.
Spearing into the tires went Dario Franchitti, and there's Al Unser Jr. walking past Franchitti's car, headed back to the pits.
Remember in the earlier interview, Al Unser Jr. talked about to win this race on a day like today in the pregame show, he said you have to stay out of trouble.
Now from overhead, watch the left side of your screen.
Right down in here, you can see the two cars going off. They've hooked wheels in there, and they're trying to accelerate away. There's nowhere to go. It just takes them off the track into the tire barrier.
9 races, 5 DNFs for former series champion Al Unser Jr., who has had a terrible run of luck recently. In that interview on the grid with Danny, he also mentioned, I've got to get my act together, and I have to start driving better. Now there is Scott Pruitt, who spun at the head of the straightaway, apparently stalled the car, but did not hit anything. How did he get there? Let's go back and take another look as they came
right
off
here's his
9.
car right there. And you can see him. He's trying to put the power down on the road. Just got it sideways and kept going. See the wheels still spinning there. And then he stalls it.
I think he thought he could save that. Kept his foot in it, kept the wheel spinning, tried to go through 360 degrees. Couldn't get it done. Now let's take another look at what happened to Al Unser Jr. and Dario Franchitti from Michael Andretti's onboard camera. There goes Scott Pruitt. Right about now, Michael's probably thinking, well, that was close. I'm spinning my wheels. I better be careful. So that was Michael's view of Scott Pruitt's incident, not Al Unser Jr.'s. I beg your pardon. Let's get down to Marty Reed.
Yes, we're down here with a very unhappy Carl Hogan. Carl, you saw the replay, and you went over to have a few words with some of the Penske people. Care to share with us your thoughts?
Well, I just asked him if Al said what happened, because that's not like Junior to do something like that. And he, you know, I'm sure something happened and they pushed us off the track, but it's just unfortunate. Get a little sick and tired of this stuff.
Obviously, very, very frustrated Carl Hogan.
There you see his car. Dario Franchitti is out, about to go on the hook. Alex Zanardi leads Big Mo Gugelmin, Jimmy Vasser, Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti. We'll be back with more from Portland shortly. Back at Portland, here's another reminder. The NASCAR Modifieds roll into Watkins Glen International Circuit for the Watkins Glen 150. You can catch it Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific, only on ESPN. Back at Portland, we remain under a full course caution. There you see Al Unser Jr.'s machine being lifted behind the barrier. Dario Franchitti's is already there after those two locked wheels and plowed into the tire wall in the festival chicane. We have one lap to the green flag.
I think we ought to just talk briefly, Bob, about that situation, because Carl Hogan was obviously very upset. But I think he was upset before because of the pit stop. They had a problem with the wheel gun. He was already frustrated. They go back out. Dario's been running very well. He tries to make something happen by going around the outside of Little Al. He's on his blind side. They come out of there. They get hooked up wheel to wheel, and they kind of lock in there. Once you're locked up like that, there's nothing you can do. They get onto the grass, and then it's all over. See, right out here, right out there, the two of them are together, and they just get hooked up wheel to wheel. You can't do anything. Once they touch that grass and they're trying to accelerate, it's all over. Neither one of them, they were both passengers there. Neither one of them could control the situation.
You ride with Alex Zanardi, the race leader. Keep in mind, back earlier this year on the streets of Long Beach, California, Alex Zanardi took the lead from Gilles de Ferran in the pits and went on for his first and thus far only win of the PPG Kart World Series season. The field summary in the upper left, modified through the absence of Franchitti and Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal running 2 laps down. A rough return to Portland for the elder statesman of the PPG Kart World Series. There's Alex Zanardi. Last year, Zanardi came into this race with comparatively few points, but then simply caught fire, took pole for this race, the beginning of that pole streak that took him all the way to the early parts of this season, and he scored, if I'm not mistaken, 115 points in the second half of the season, far more than any other driver. So we can expect him, if he can catch fire again in the second half of the season, to challenge for the series championship. You saw Bobby Rahal, also a good second half performer. There is Patrick Carpentier, the rookie leader. Carpentier is an interesting story. Before Tony Bettenhausen hired Carpentier, he tested a number of drivers, including a young Danish driver named Tom Christensen. Tom Christensen didn't get the drive. Carpentier did. Christensen just won the 24 Hours of Le Mans driving with Stefan Johansson, who preceded Carpentier in that seat. Green flag. We are back underway. You ride with Michael Andretti. Paul Tracy and Mark Blundell wheel to wheel. Andretti just behind that battle. Then Greg Moore, Brian Herta, and Alex Ribeiro. Moore runs 7th, Herta 8th, Ribeiro 9th, and Parker Johnstone is 10th. Pardon me, Andre Ribeiro, not Alex Ribeiro. His friends call him Alex.
Well, Alex Ribeiro used to be a Formula 3 driver who I raced against in 1975.
Oh, yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Mark Blundell in 5th, having another good run.
He just passed Paul Tracy for a position.
On the backstretch up to top speed. Here comes Michael Andretti calling on Greg Moore. Tricky series of corners right here.
Very tricky, and that's a very fast corner down there in the dry. You just tap the brakes and go from 190 miles an hour to about 170 through that series of corners. Look at Michael out there sideways trying to put the power on the road.
Moore creeping up on Paul Tracy now.
Again, remember, Greg Moore is on Firestone tires. Paul Tracy and Michael are on Goodyears.
Andre Ribeiro has gotten around Brian Herta for 8th place. Now Herta trying to move up under power. It looks very flat, but there is a slight roll and undulation to this part of the racetrack. Turns 3, 4, and 5, like a broad meadow. The drivers go slightly up and downhill through some of these corners. That, of course, helps the drainage. This track dries fairly quickly, except for a couple of places where there are large standing puddles. Parker Johnstone now closing up on Herta. That would be for 9th place.
Taking the inside line, protecting his position a little bit there. He's got a lot of racing left to do to protect it for the entire race.
Raul Boesel to the right of your screen in the orange Brahma sponsored car for Patrick Racing, also in that battle, and so is Michel Jourdain Jr. Peyton Coyne team has switched over to one Reynard chassis for the young Mexican driver. They got it from Bobby Rahal's team. One of their